I'm very pleased to host today's event as President of the UKWA, which I have been for nearly 25 years now. I have to say it's not an onerous job, but it's a very good organisation, and I think we've got a lot of people here today, representatives of all sides of the logistics and warehousing industry, and so I hope we have an enjoyable lunch. We're going to have some interesting speeches, I think, not one from me, you'll be glad to know, but there will be some.
Now, what do I see about the future of the European Union, where Britain is in it and where Britain can help substantially? There are a number of things. First of all, deepening the single market. We have a single market created by Mrs. Thatcher 30 years ago. It's working well, but there are a lot of areas where it could work better. A lot of work's got to be done there. We can be main substantial influence on the way that develops.
We are also informed that we need to stay in the EU to have a stronger voice. I remind you, a stronger voice. Well, I see this in a very different way. All of the UK MEPs actually only represent, out of the 751 MEPs, 8% of the total voice in the EU Parliament. So not so much of a roar, but a squeak. So much for being a major player.
We've been through a huge financial crisis, not just in Europe, right across the world. A lot of work has got to be done to improve the quality of our banks, to improve the quality of our regulation. We, as part of Europe, are going to play a big part in influencing the way that develops.
I hear today about trading with the single market, but it does not rely on the membership of the EU. And for those that I need to remind you, it's not between politicians, trade. It's actually between businesses.
We must establish a strong relationship between those countries which are in the euro and those countries like ourselves who are not in the euro. Again, inside the tent, we will influence that debate in a constructive way. Outside it, we will not.
Non-members trade more successfully with the single market than the UK. We are all aware that the UK has the third largest market share as a provider of the logistics service in the EU. Yet the UK is open to competition under the EU Directive 96/97/EC. With more changes from the EU legislation, the Union Customs Code will have major financial implications to the UK warehouse operators.
Fourthly, we must have more collaboration across Europe on the issue of energy. Energy is the big issue concerning all businesses across the world, and in Europe particularly.
The typical EU hype of harmonising the warehousing business with other member states. Transferring all communications electronically. Well, I'm all for being modern, but it all comes with a cost.
We must, obviously, in the light of the present problems on border control, work closely from within Europe to strengthen those border controls and to make sure that the migration arrangements work properly. That does not mean stopping migrants coming into this country. We need migrants in this country. Many people in this room will be employing a lot of migrants. Many people in this room mightn't be in business if we didn't have them. But we've got to improve the way we manage that.
The UK government last November increased the premium insurance tax from 6% to 9.5%, adding more pressure to the logistics industry and other businesses. They see no end to the financial constraints companies have to bear.
We're on the verge of completing, the EU on the verge of completing a very big trade deal with the United States. We cannot influence that if we're outside Europe. We can when we're inside Europe.
With EU pressure on climate, energy prices have not improved but increased. This has destroyed many manufacturing industries. I believe we are big enough, we are strong enough to negotiate our own deals.
Next, we must tackle the issue of climate change. Again, this is an issue one country on its own cannot deal with. Within Europe, we can work together and are working together to tackle the problems, the very real problems.
And certainly on the Brexit ticket, the UK warehousing industry would work with the GATS framework and continue to grow under their own terms.
The European Union wants Britain to remain in, and there are very good reasons why they do. First of all, if we go out, it'll be a bad example to others, and other people may want to get out, and that would lead to maybe the breakup of the European Union, which in itself would be a catastrophe for those of us who are old enough to remember the Second World War.
I would say to you all, just remember, there was life before the EU, where we were a strong nation, and we can be once again. Thank you.